Hi everyone, this is Lulu. Welcome to my channel. Today I'd like to welcome everyone to a brand new series called the Business Professions Interview. I'm aware that many talent people have the same dilemmas, which is, what do I truly want to do? Well, I don't know the answer, but I'd love to help you to find one. So for this series, I'd like to talk with the business people from different industries to learn about their backgrounds, their day-to-days, and solicit some career guidance. I hope everyone can enjoy it. Today, I'm speaking with Patrick Jeller, the CEO of Freedom Electronics. He and I have been working together for more than 3 years, and he is the one who inspired me to pursue my MBA degree. Consider that he asked me in my explorations of potentials and new job roles. I think he's the perfect candidate for my first interview. Now, let's kick it off. Hey Patrick, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. So for those who doesn't know him, Patrick is the CEO for Freedom Electronics since 2019. He made ton of strategic decisions over the past 3 years to facilitate Freedom to a higher stage. So Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, Lulu. Thank you. So my name is Patrick Jettler. I've joined Freedom late 2019. But my background is I'm an immigrant and I came from Austria and moved to the United States in '94. And I've worked in the retail fueling industry ever since I came here. Started off working for electrical contractor, then worked for service organizations, eventually worked for an original equipment manufacturer, Wayne Fueling Systems, or now Dover Fueling Solutions. Had many roles within that organization. And then in 2019, was selected to be the CEO of Freedom Electronics.
That sounds interesting. As you mentioned, you have tried so many different roles in the past. So what do you think, which part actually benefit you most to help you to get this CEO position?
So I think it's more of a comprehensive view. It's really my involvement in this industry from the ground up, right? I've really learned this business from the ground up, whether it was from the supplier side or, from the OEM side or the vendor side. Different roles within it helped me get a deep understanding of this business. And I think it's very important that there is a connection to whatever industry you're in so you can speak intelligently about what it is and be passionate about what you're doing. As you grow in different roles, right, it becomes important that you have some management roles, right? Typically, everyone starts off as an individual contributor, and you get assigned a task and you do it, and hopefully you do it well, and you get to do more and more. And eventually, somebody's going to say, well, can you manage this team? And this is really the first hurdle for somebody to step up into a managing role, because a lot of times there is not really any management training, right? All people can draw from is whoever their manager was previously, and hopefully they have taken good notes of what they liked about that person's management style and what they didn't like and improve upon that. So that's an important aspect, right? Because you really have to learn how to manage teams, and that's really a critical role as you progress in your career. The other part is you want to have some type of sales experience. No matter what you do, I think for you to be a leader in any organization, you have to understand the sales cycle, what is involved with sales, because ultimately every for-profit business sells something, whether it's a service or a product, right, or data. There's always some aspect of sales in it. So I encourage everyone to at least take some time and learn about the sales role, right? Whether it's you're a salesperson yourself or you work in a sales support role, but I think it's critical for any business leader to be involved in sales at some part.
Yeah, Yeah, thank you. That's really beneficial. So you mentioned the sales experience, the managerial skills, and also the deep knowledge about the industrial. But like I know that you have been in this industrial for like maybe 20 years. I'm sure that like while you try different roles, there's some things you certainly gonna getting challenged from. Like how like what the biggest challenge you get and how do you like overcome those?
So as you grow and you take on more responsibility, it becomes important to learn how to give up control. And that is not easy. It wasn't easy for me, and it's usually not easy for a lot of people. That's why you often hear about the term micromanagers and people trying to stay in control of other people to every nitty gritty. And that comes down to the learning process of learning to give up that control and starting to trust your people and empowering your team members to do their job. And that is not an easy task. It took me a long time because up to a certain point in my career, I was able to just jump in and do that person's job, right? If I had somebody working on my team and they were either falling behind or the results I delivered weren't satisfactory, I usually knew enough about someone's job that I could go in and jump in there and do it or help them and just push them along. But you're going to get to a point in your career where your teams are too large or the roles become too complex. You can't be the expert anymore in every single role on your team. And this is really when you have to learn to switch on how you manage a team and start empowering your people to be able to do their jobs better, right? And focus. So you shift from trying to work harder and more time to enabling your team and focusing on management and empowering your team members. So that was an important thing, and that was a challenge for me to overcome and get that mind shift. You know, that the next piece was really being at ease with the unknown. So when you start in your career, a lot of times you're given a task and you know exactly what's expected of you and pretty much also how to get there. You just have to do it. The further along you get in your career, the more you're being asked to do things where nobody really knows how to do that task yet. It's up to you to figure it out. And so as you grow in that, you have to become comfortable with that. And so that's somewhat challenging as well. And then, you know, one of the things that's still a challenge, right, is letting people go. I mean, at some point, right, you have to make adjustments to your team, whether your teams become too large or, you know, you have economic reasons to reduce the size of the team. It's just not an easy thing to do, because rarely is the person that you have to let go, is it because they're being terminated for some egregious offense, right? It's usually a nice person, but they're just not good enough at their job, or they're just, you know, it's beyond their capabilities to deliver the results that you're expecting. So that never comes easy. And it's just something that you continuously have to overcome and work on.
I truly want to expand it the point one and point three a little bit. So I think that's something quite like concerned me as well, which is that I want to be promoted to be a managerial role, right? To take more responsibilities to make some like strategic decisions. But also I'm afraid that if I like hand off my day-to-days to someone else, which means that I don't have some like real work to work on, which quite like reduce my job security. How do you see this kind of situation, and how do you mentally like adjust this kind of situation yourself?
So it is not that you won't have anything to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not you, because if you're just giving your task to somebody else, then your role really wouldn't be needed, right? You'll be asked to do something else, and your something else will require you to delegate and have that other person do your other work, and you just need to be able to measure them. It becomes more important you need to then, because typically as you become a manager, you won't just be managing one person, right? Nobody needs a manager to manage one person. So you'll have to manage a group of people. I think a size of 5 to 7 people is a good group to manage. So your time then will be spent on figuring out how do you measure that team's effectiveness, right? You will spend your time on setting goals for that team. You'll be able to have to check in and see if they're performing against those goals. And you'll have to be able to come up with meaningful metrics and KPIs so you can evaluate the performance of the individual in your team. So you'll spend more time. That's the time where you spend managing.
Yeah, I think that's truly really valuable. Thank you. Talking about you got your CEO roles 3 years ago. So in which situation that you decided to do the job searches and applying for the C titles roles?
So I didn't actually search for the role. I was sitting at my last job and I was pretty happy doing what I'm doing. And I was contacted by a recruiter and naturally was excited about the opportunity to step up. And there's a lot of factors that had to come into play. Mm-hmm. For me, I had to be at the right time in my career. I was comfortable in my last job. And from a personal life, what was important is I could take the risk. Because when you go from an employee at a large organization where you're performing well, you probably have a pretty good job security. But when you move into a role where you're responsible for leading a company and the associated performance goals that are expected of that job, mm-hmm. there is no job security. If you perform well, you don't have a job, right? So you have to understand there's a lot of risk with that role. There's very little patience for, well, I didn't get my job done, or there's no excuses. You are expected to deliver on the results that you promise to, whether it's a board or shareholders, it doesn't matter at that point, right? But there's somebody you have to go deliver your results to. And it's not a lot of patience for not being able to deliver. So that being said, it comes with a lot of risk. Mm-hmm. And so when my kids were grown, I could take that risk, right? There's a time in your life where you're less risk averse, and then you can be more risk averse. Typically, when you start out in your career, you don't have a lot of responsibilities and you're just responsible for yourself. So you can take on a lot of risk once you have a family and you're responsible for a bunch of other people in your life, and you become less, you have less appetite for taking on that risk. And then once, the family is grown, become adults, you can take on a little bit more risk. So it was the right time for me and everything lined up.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people only see the brain side of being a C level of people, but they don't know how much pressure you actually got. But I'm so grateful that you're sharing this a whole story. So tell me more about your current role. How's your day-to-day looks like?
So most of my time really has to be spent on company strategy. Mm-hmm. So I view my role as being the head coach of my team, right? So I as the CEO or the leader of an organization, the main focus is to enable your team to do their job well. And so I hire people that can do their function extremely well. And so the shift is I can't be the expert in all those roles, right? So I seek out people that are very good at their job. And then my role is to enable them to perform at the best they can perform, meaning blocking and tackling and taking away obstacles. That's why we have team meetings, right? So you've set to those team meetings. And if somebody says, look, I can't deliver this because of X, Y, and Z, then we look at how can we remove those obstacles and what else in the organization needs to change that person can fulfill the goal. Because when we start off, when we talk about the strategy and the company strategy and how we want to shape the business, we really look at long-term trends. So that means we're going to say, what is the market going to look like in 5 to 10 years? How will that impact our customers? And, we have to anticipate our customers' needs at that time. And how do we need to shape Freedom to fulfill to fulfill that need 5 to 10 years from now. And so we built that out. And so the company strategy is set by the leadership team, and then we drive towards that. And so the other part is me staying informed in the industry, staying up to date with what developments are, so I can help build that strategy and that vision for the company.
Yeah, that makes sense. And thank you for that. So what do you think the most significant differences between the CEOs and directors or VPs role?
The VP or director level is hired for a particular function and is expected to be the star, right? The superstar of that role, right? Whether that's an operations role or a sales role or marketing, you hire that team member to be the expert in that particular field. Mm-hmm. And so their responsibility focuses around that task. So our VP of operations, right, they're thinking every day about how do we make the operations more efficient? What do we need to do to get more efficient? They don't think about benefits and HR stuff and all the other things, right? They're very laser focused on their task. Mm-hmm. The difference is I'm not laser focused on any specific task. I have the team for that. My responsibility is for the overall business and make sure we meet and drive towards our strategic goals.
Yeah, I like that. So I think you were mentioned about the stakeholders before, and you also talk about a lot of things about the strategic things. So is there any chances that you actually getting conflicts between the with the stakeholders about the strategies, and how do you overcome those?
So that's a good question, and I would say the strategy is set upon a vision. So I'll have a vision for where I think we want to go take freedom, and that for that vision, it has to be supported by the leadership team. Mm-hmm. So that vision will be formed. We'll have our strategy sessions, and the entire leadership team needs to be aligned. You can't just be the CEO and have an idea that's crazy and nobody supports it. You will not be successful. Mm-hmm. So you have to get the team engaged and excited about the strategic initiatives, about the company. And then it's more about the execution on how to achieve that strategic initiative. And so the stakeholder, in my case, it would be a VP. They'll have different ideas on how to achieve that. My role is to provide guidance and ask questions to make sure that that person's tactical initiatives to achieve the strategy align with the overall company strategy and don't veer off on a different direction. But as long as that's done, I have to give that person enough leeway to make the decision. That's why they're there, right? I mean, it's not, otherwise I'd be micromanaging. Right. And it's not my role to drive every aspect of the business to the execution level. Right. I'm more of the coach, as I mentioned earlier, to make sure each person achieves it. The other important part is you have to allow room for error and failure. If you can't think you're going to have everything be 100% success. Things will go wrong. You can plan the best laid plan. That can be something that goes, off the rails. It's there to support it. You have to go be able to recover quickly. That's an important aspect of what I look for on my leadership team is you have the authority to go drive the business in a certain way, as long as it's within the realm of their strategic initiatives. But you have to also recognize when it's not going the way it's planned and be able to pivot and recover and go with a different approach.
Yeah, that's really meaningful. So talking back to your role, so what do you like and dislike about your current role?
So what I really like about my current role is coming to work every day and seeing some of the initiatives that we put together come to life, right? Whether it's some of the product launches that we've done and we've planned, and then seeing them be successful in the marketplace, that is very rewarding. But I think the biggest goal that I see for a company is to have a common goal and all the employees work towards a common goal. Because everyone, is participating in that goal, no matter what level in the organization they are. And so that is very rewarding to see that, right? That you have all these different teams and they're all different functions, but ultimately we all work towards one common goal. And so I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. So about the things you dislike?
So, well, what is not so fun is I don't really have any peers, right? So as the top role in the company, that you can't really confide in your coworkers, because like you would with some of the other coworkers if you're a peer. Mm-hmm. So that is a little bit tougher, right? So you have to think about what you say. You can't you got to keep your emotions pretty tight. So that comes with the territory, and you have to accept that.
Yeah, I can tell. Okay, so a lot of one funny question, which is whenever I think about if I have one question to ask to one CEO, the question gonna be how to become one. Can you answer me that question?
So there are many different paths of becoming a CEO, mm-hmm. right? A lot of times CEOs are the ones that found and start the company, mm-hmm. right? So if you look at Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg started the company, he's still the CEO. Bill Gates, when he was president, he started the company, was the CEO. So mm-hmm. a lot of times the founders are the CEOs. That's one way. Mm-hmm. That's almost, I would say, the easiest way, because there's nobody to tell you any other way, right? If you're the founder of a company, you get to be the boss. Other ways are, for smaller companies, it's somebody who's been the second in command or has worked, has a long-time employee. They've learned the business, they understand all the various aspects. They sometimes step up and become the CEO. And then other ways, it's you work in an industry, you have a lot of expertise, and it just lines up with a company that's looking for leadership where you have the right background for. Mm-hmm. There's no recipe on how to become a CEO.
Yeah, I hope there's one. But thank you for sharing.
But there's lots of opportunity to become one.
Yeah.
And like I said, the easiest way is you start your own company, you can be a CEO.
Yes, let me try to actually creating my own ideas for my business first. Okay, you were talking about one of the most important things for the CEO is to actually have some managerial skills. Mm-hmm. Would you please give me some advice to the new grads or the individual contributors? What they need to do in order to get to some managerial roles opportunity? Hmm?
Yeah, so the first thing is you have to do your tasks well. Mm-hmm. Employees that are underperforming or just mediocre, mm-hmm. typically don't get promoted to the next level. To become a manager is usually associated with a promotion for a job well done. Mm-hmm. Because the idea is you take an employee that's very good at a task, mm-hmm. and when you promote that person to a manager, the goal is that person takes his or her skill set, what made him be a really good employee, and be able to teach others to multiply that success across whatever team is going to manage, mm-hmm. right? So first, you have to be a good and strong employee. The second one is, once you become that manager, lead by example, mm-hmm. right? People don't take, people always appreciate, so I should say this, so people appreciate it when a manager does what is expected of the employees too, right? You don't want a manager that says, well, I need you to show up at 7 and work 12 hours. And I show up at 9 and go home at 4, right? As a manager, nobody likes that. That breeds resentment. As a manager, you're there with your team and you help your team grow, and that resonates. But I think the other item that there's really 2 rules that I go by that has helped me be successful, and that is number 1, be responsive. If somebody asks you something, give an answer. You know, how frustrating it is when somebody asks an email or leaves a voicemail and nobody gets back to you, right? That happens all the time, but just be responsive. People just want to know if they, you received the message, you understood what's going on. That's it. Just keep people in the loop. And the other one that's very important, deliver what you promise, right? If you say you're going to do something by this date, do it and get it done. Don't overpromise, right? There's a balance. Promise what you can deliver, but do keep those promises. And so if you're responsive and you can keep the promises and what the next person needs from you, I think that's a good recipe for success.
Yeah, I like that. And yes, that's quite like also my philosophy with this, which is under promise but over deliver. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So right now it's coming to our last question. Let's make it fun. So some of your employees may be watching this video. So what do you want to say to them?
Well, so if some of our employees watch this video, I would like them to know that everyone on our team, no matter what the role is that they fill, is an important contributor and fulfills a needed role. And that role makes us who we are, and it allows us to serve our customers better than our competition. And for that, I'm very thankful. I want everyone to know that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, thank you so much for spending time with me today, Patrick. Thank you.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure. My pleasure.